It's something that we haven't even talking about, but it's something that has come up. Because we're just talking about talking to the people ahead, the language you use. I don't know if you've monitored the reaction of the members of your party to the recent announcement by former President John Dramani Mahama that Kabir Ochudako's cousin to the president came to see him. People were of the opinion that he shouldn't even have entertained him. Is this something you understand from that kind of language?
Sorry, I have not discussed this with him.
Okay.
So I don't want to comment on it now.
Okay.
Okay. I have not discussed it with him.
Okay.
When I do, then I'll understand more.
Okay. Prof, but let me now move you to, because I have been, but there are several questions that are coming in from people.
Okay.
Let me come to you on the issue of that tete-a-tete between Gabi Ochidako and then former President Mahama. Like Comrade Mona said in his submission, some people have said that, of course, former President Mahama is a man of tolerance, even to his political opponents and his detractors. But what do you have to say about it?
I associate largely, almost exclusively, what Bernard said. Except first and foremost to add, to qualify that Gabi is the life wire of this government. In fact, if you see Gabi doing anything, it is with the blessing of President Nana Akufo-Addo. He is the operational man who does all the work of the government. So, Masa, I can tell you with that and that look, except that where I disagree with you, they say that because he doesn't hold any portfolio. Gabi doesn't need a portfolio. In fact, Gabi is more than a portfolio. I can tell you that when Gabi enters places where cabinet ministers are, they will all get up for him. Ask anybody who knows the situation. Because he's the real power behind this government. Okay? No doubt about that. But I just wanted to which house was Gabi going to? Because you remember, it has never happened where a departing president is subject to such embarrassment like they did to President Mahama. Do you remember? They think Ghanaians were forgotten. What they did to President Mahama with his residence, when there was agreement for him to stay, and all of a sudden they made President Mahama to park out of his house in broad daylight in the afternoon. Under humiliation. For God's sake. President Nana Akufo-Addo openly embarrassed President Mahama to get him to park out in disgrace during the daytime. So which house was he sending Gabi to go to? Which house? For God's sake, I can't speak much on this matter. Except to say President Mahama acts truly like a statesman. But my brother, no matter how tamed you are, no matter how tamed the monkey is, it will never befriend a dog for a companion. Because you know the enmity between the dog and the monkey. You may want to, as it were, in the interest of the nation, cool down temperatures and others. But beware of the man whose mouth is full of water and he wants to blow to the candle fire. These are not people who are sincere. A lot of them are not sincere. They will not stab you all in the back. They will stab you in the front. I just told you, just today, within the short distance now, they have suddenly metamorphosed and found out that some of the people who have had issues of causing financial, they are taking our colleague at forcing to court. These are people who are looking for reconciliation. Are these conciliatory people? If you are looking for people, there are people who are carrying crimes on their head under Nana Akufo-Addo. He's watching them. He has become the chief clearing agent for people who have been seen publicly to be inundated neck deep in corruption. Has the president found any way of getting anybody to deal with them? You think it is for nothing? Look at, go and listen to Honorable Martin Amido when he quit the Mother Serpent corruption team. Go listen to him. So these are not people who are committed to fighting corruption and people who are committed to ensuring that they can build consensus for the way forward. I would urge President Mahama, yes, to continue to be a statesman, but to continue to be a statesman for the right reasons.
For the right reasons.
Not a statesman because anybody parading those songs with a dagger behind him will be allowed. I know that sometimes the leader should not be put at the front. I was wondering, where were some of the frontline people who protect His Excellency President Mahama? Because you see, somebody like me, if I were there, he wouldn't have come near the house. If President Mahama will even sack me afterwards, I'll make sure that I sack him first. And take him far away. In fact, you have gone to the cemetery. That cemetery, have you seen, before you get to President, there's a cemetery far away. I would have driven him to that cemetery there. Before even they come and drag me out of it, listen, that I'm no longer working there, then you go away.
Nowhere that you drive him all the way to
so that you don't leave him naked. This current situation now is leaving him naked to mount a defense. Even in his own estimation, where he would have wanted to act as a statesman. But that is a difficulty. So you must pick and choose. There's nobody who has sought to humiliate the image and integrity of President Mahama more than this group of this same group of people. It's just because President Mahama, like people say that the seed planted by the Almighty Allah cannot be destroyed by even the most devastating drought. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, what they did by now, they would have destroyed President Mahama. Koto, 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 koto. So after destroying the man, which image are you going to come to appeal to him to help you to build consensus? To do what? In any case, the consensus they are saying they were to build consensus, to do what? Because you have described him as incompetent. Who described him as incompetent? Is it not the same people? So are they going to look for him for incompetent suggestions, proposals to solve a problem? How can incompetent proposals solve a problem? You see, that's why I say that it is comparison that disgraces a donkey. Mm. When the donkey alone is running, you think it is a fast animal. Wait until the horse joins the race. You see that the donkey will smoke the dust of the horse. Today you see how they are panting with the record of President Mahama versus their record. Abysmal record. Today. Under their watch, the economy has collapsed. Mm. Under their watch. That is why they see Momo Levy as the only redemption. Nothing, they can borrow. They have borrowed that into extinction. Nothing is working. Guardians are crying all over the place today. So they are looking for an outlet. I want to urge President Mahama. He should not provide that outlet for them. They say that they have the panacea to the country's economic woes. Where is Dr. Bawumia? He has the magic wand to wave our economic woes. Where is he today?
Right.
He's struggling to transmogrify into an IT aspect. Even without even attending the Boyer School of Technology. Mm. He's now IT expert. Mm. Okay? So it is not. Yes, as a statesman, if somebody wants this into he can make proposals, but it is not at secluded meetings. No. In any case, you don't even know at that meeting what that person is carrying. You don't know. You can't prefer anything. And I honestly, in all this, will want to fault those who are supposed to be around His Excellency the President.
President is simply Michael on this.
And that is Joseph Osei-Wusu, MP for Bekwai, who is trying to make the constitution of this country almost like a toilet roll. He doesn't even have respect for the people of this country. He doesn't respect the constitution. He doesn't respect law. And he doesn't respect anybody. And he is doing things at his own will and whims and caprices. Now, on the issue of John Mahama meeting Gabi Asare-Otedako, in the first place, I had a question to ask. And that question was to know in what capacity did Gabi Asare-Otedako visit President Mahama? Friends don't do to discuss matters like governance. They don't, please. What's wrong? Unless you're a member of the government, I do discussions with President Mahama. But President Mahama has not, put it in public like he has done with Gabi Asare-Otedako. You understand? Over the years, Ghanaians have had a certain belief that Gabi Asare-Otedako is almost a de facto president or so. They call him prime minister in some cases. And this underpins what we discussed in the past as a nepotistic government. That aside, I don't have a problem with their meeting. And I'll put it out publicly, not having any issue whatsoever, apart from this question I asked. In what capacity did he meet him? Now, if he met him as a friend, fine. I don't have a problem with it. But the problem I have with the critics of John Mahama, who don't see the positive, especially when Gabi has exposed himself as being a de facto president or a prime minister, especially when Gabi has told the world that now he has a stake to have to go to John Mahama with Akufo-Addo's worries to discuss issues about governance, issues about, if you're not a member of a government, you don't discuss governance. You don't. So to that extent, I rather would want those critics of John Mahama to see it in this way. One, Gabi has now told the world that Akufo-Addo has no idea anymore, and John Mahama has got ideas. He has now seen the competence in John Mahama. That is the only reason why Gabi Asare-Otedako, the cousin to Akufo-Addo, will walk to the one that has competence and capabilities and potency of ideas. Because that notwithstanding, let's find out one thing. You see, it's a drama of a paradox. In one breath, that man is incompetent. Everyone, just recently, I heard Bawumia in Kumasi discussing Mahama as almost a good for the garbage being. He's only good for the garbage. Then you send, because of some rudeness or arrogance and all that, you send Gabi to go to seek for how he's able to talk to the minority or whatever. Now, that man, John Mahama, if you put his achievements with that money he had in his hands, apart with Akufo-Addo, you see that the heights of both will tell who has performed better. So, going to him is to solicit for ideas, especially when they have stolen almost everything that belongs to the state. I use my words carefully because I know those are the best words that fit them, because you can't have 477 billion and perform this abysmal and come back to the Ghanaian and tell him you have nothing in your coffers. You don't. So to that extent, Gabi's visit to John Mahama is rather telling the Ghanaian that Akufo-Addo has short ideas. He has no more any idea. And so let's go to the competent one, the one who has got the prowess in governance, the one who has got the magic wand, who can tell us of how we can get out of this quagmire that it's a self-inflicted quagmire, so that in the end, we are able to do what the Ghanaian will be attracted to. Last but not the least, what I expect of John Mahama is to put out there that e-levy is a no. I want to hear his idea on e-levy. I want to know what he says about e-levy, so that it will not appear as though he doesn't have a voice when it's about e-levy. He has to put out clearly what his stance on e-levy is. As for whatever the minority have done in parliament, they stand to be praised. They have not been selfish. I mean, the e-levy, if you came out to say if they are not accepting or if they have rejected the budget, they will not be paid, and they still stood firm and said they don't even care if they are not paid, and they did all that they have done, they stand to be praised. Meanwhile, what I think the MPP should reflect, especially knowing that 2024 is just around the corner. Their constituents, those poor taxpayers who have been paying tax out of their mobile money vending on the streets in their constituency, e-levy is going to collapse their jobs. E-levy is going to make sure they become impoverished. So that if you think about how a capitalist government is supposed to behave in rather building businesses and not collapsing business, you have to sit quietly.
My concern is that, look, President Mahama is very naked at this moment. But more importantly, Lalaji, assuming you were the one Gabi was to have Coca-Cola with. No, he put it Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola.
That's how it's called.
Or it was Haruna Idrisu that he had this meeting with, or the Speaker of Parliament. I'm not sure that this table would have been like this for us to sit. I hope you understand. There would have been so much tension in this country as to why Haruna Idrisu will have Coca-Cola, or Bagbin will have Coca-Cola, or EBA will have Coca-Cola. If you want to deal party to party, it must be done rightly. Don't expose and break the front of the people, because many people are angry. And I know somebody who very close, they were together in the coffee mafia. Is it? Coffee shop mafia.
Kokubaku's coffee shop.
Yes, one of them, very prominent, who is very livid that it was under the instruction of Gabi that the so-called national security boys came and woke him, his wife and children, and they were there and they said they were searching for something. In the middle of the night, they were there and then they had to stand till the next morning. They didn't do anything and they left just to intimidate them. Such people are looking for a day that they too will have a chance. And when you go and do this, do you dispirit them?
Thank you very much. Let me do a few of your messages, then we wrap up. The
most important thing is that Mr. Gabi Ochedaku did not go to former President Mahama's house to discuss how to cook donuts. He did not go there, to discuss, the organization of a Christmas party. So he went there, apparently, to discuss government business. And this immediately raises the question of capacity. Who is Mr. Ochedaku? He's not a member of government. He's not even a district chief executive. He is not a member of the executive of the party. He's not even a constituency polling station chairman of the party. So immediately the question it raises is capacity. In what capacity did he go to see the former president? Are we to believe that there are persons who have no formal commitments, who have no position, and yet who do government business? And if that is the case, how does that sit with the Constitution? How does that sit with the law? And how do we see that in the light of all the allegations which have been made about how government is run today? And for me, this is a very serious matter. Okay. Now, even if you assume that he had the mandate of the president, and we don't know that yet, even if you assume that he had the mandate of the president, the question then arises as to why him? Why can't the president talk to the former president? Why does he have to go through emissaries and so on? At the very worst, one would expect that the sitting vice president may be the person, that's at the worst, to engage in this. Now, coming from where I sit, it appears to me, and again I'm choosing my words very carefully, that we have so destroyed the cordial relations which should have existed. Why have we so destroyed the cordial relations which have existed? In the past, we are told that there were meetings between the incoming president and the outgoing president. From all that we know, none of the agreements reached were honored. And in fact, some of the agreements reached in meetings were used as propaganda tools against the former president. For example, the issue about where he wanted to stay and so on. These were agreements which allegedly had been reached meeting in the Asante Palace. Look at how you so on. If you take the sitting vice president, I'm wondering how he can ever in his life approach the former president to have any meaningful discussion, given the jibes he has been throwing at him, making fun of him, and so on. And any opportunity he gets, he has to go for the jugular and so on. That kind of attitude is not useful for governance in the situation we find ourselves in today. We don't have a majority in parliament, a minority in parliament, 137 versus 137. It calls for dialogue, it calls for mutual respect, and so on. That does not appear, to exist. Now, in any case, reading all the newspapers and so on, it appears that the purpose of the visit was to solicit the help of the former president in prevailing upon members of parliament of the NDC to pass the e-levy. Is that how we conduct business? Very strange. Is that how we conduct? I would have thought that the strength of the arguments and so on is what should carry the day, and not the use of these personal influences and so on. But hey, be that as it may, after what has happened in Parliament, is meaningful dialogue possible today? It is not. We've gone to the extent of people actually exchanging blows, people getting their clothes torn, insults and so on. I mean, the Speaker of Parliament, did you read the kinds of things which were written about him and posted on the social media? Even drawing his wife into it, the wife's family into it and so on. How do you do this? And then after doing all of this, come and say that, look, let's sit down and have dialogue. Dialogue for what? And so on. I'm very deeply convinced, and I'm very, very deeply convinced that we've now come to a point in our history where dialogue, consensus building and so on is an imperative. Without that, we can't move forward. It's impossible to move forward. Now, if you look at what has happened in Parliament, it should tell you that we are heading for chaos. Listen, the Minister for Energy, the last time, just after surgery in Dubai, he was flown down, he came to Parliament in clutches, or on clutches, actually being held into Parliament House. There's a woman, honorable member of Parliament, who, according to the story I've heard, had just delivered. She came into this jurisdiction leaving a 1-week-old baby where she delivered. 1-week-old baby. I mean, how callous can we be? And if you talk to all the pediatricians and so on, they tell you that newly born babies have to have exclusive breastfeeding for at least 1 year. It has health implications and so on. Because we want to get a vote, we ignore the health of a 1-week-old baby, drag this woman to Parliament to come and vote. The doctor said that she could be in Parliament for 1 week. It's past 1 week. We're in the second week. She's still here. I mean, what is this? It is not possible to play the numbers game. You can't play the numbers game forever. So at some point, we have to play some other game. Of course, if you talk about the issue of bad blood, it has a history. I recall that the NDC government at some point wanted to have what they call the Senche Consensus. And there were leading members of the New Patriotic Party who felt that it was a good idea and actually wanted to participate. Their party warned them that there would be consequences if they participated. They withdrew at the last minute. Now, having conducted yourself in this manner, how do you now use the same mechanism that you rejected? That's another issue, and so on. And I'm very deeply worried about the state of affairs. This morning, one of the people I really respect, and I came to respect Mr. Kwame Pienu a lot, because we were in the same prison. I was in the same prison for him for some time, spent about 6 months with him in prison. And it was in prison that I saw his leadership quality. He organized the town prison farm, and did many things that I won't talk about here. Organized a choir for the prison and so on. And he was an excellent person. He's one person who also has been a very strong pillar in the New Patriotic Party. A lot of people don't know how the New Patriotic Party was built. I was directly involved. Akoto Ampaw and I inaugurated the first Dankwa Buzia Club at the KO Methodist Park in Kumasi. Akoto Ampaw and I. Professor Duboahini and I inaugurated the second Dankwa Buzia Club in Koforidua and so on. So I know what I'm talking about. Mr. Kwame Pienu was most instrumental in the formation of the party and its founding. In fact, the first headquarters of the party at Kokomemle was funded by people like Mr. Kwame Pienu and so on. He's a very loyal member of the New Patriotic Party. Now, listen to what he says today about the state of the economy. And this is a story which is published on the front page of the Insight, which I just read. It says, Mr. Kwame Pienu, an economist and leading member of the ruling New Patriotic Party, has heavily descended on Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, accusing him of mismanaging the country's fiscal space. According to the NPP stalwart, the Finance Minister's indulgence in excessive borrowing is destroying the country's economy and leading to high public debt. He said it is worrying that the Akufo-Addo administration is currently borrowing as though there was no tomorrow. Mr. Pienu, in an interview with a crowd-based TV3 only yesterday, on the minister's performance in terms of the management of the economy, said, No, he hasn't done a good job. He's overborrowing. We are not getting value for money. He said COVID-19 should have taught us that we should cut our coat according to our cloth. There is no Father Christmas, but that is not what is happening. This government is borrowing as if there is no end. Somebody has to pay for it. If you take a bond, I'm not going to pay for it. My grandchildren are going to pay for it, he added. Ufurata, and this is in quotation, Ufurata needs to realize that he's not just a budget and expenditure minister. He is Minister of Finance, and so on and so on. Now, these are the views of Mr. Kwame Pieni. Elsewhere, I've read that Mr. Kwame Pieni is complaining that he's actually made several calls to Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, and that he doesn't even pick his calls. Now, if you cannot talk to your own leading members of your party, how do you talk to the opposition? If you cannot talk to somebody like Mr. Kwame Pieni, how do you talk to the opposition? So all these talk about consensus building, all these talks about constructive engagement and so on, why is it when we are refusing to talk to somebody like Mr. Kwame Pieni, that is assuming that Mr. Kwame Pieni is right? Of course, I have no reason to believe that is not right. I've known him as a very honest person. You understand? I've dealt with him for many years.
Also an economist.
I've dealt with Mr. Kwame Pieni for many years. And I know that he speaks his mind. I know that he's an honest person. So if you're not talking to Mr. Kwame Pieni, who are you going to talk to? Setepe? If you're not talking to Kwame Pieni, are you going to be talking to Haruna Idrisu and so on? So there's a real problem. Now, my brother, let's look at the facts, the real facts. There is no doubt today, no doubt, and I've said this many times over, it's becoming actually a cliche, that if you take total national revenue, we are spending 128% of total national revenue on two line items: debt servicing and public sector emoluments. That's a collapsed economy. The economy has collapsed. We can't build gutter if you don't borrow. The other was saying that you can't even buy petrol into the president's car if you borrow. That's a collapsed economy. You understand? 128% of total national revenue being expended on two line items. That's a disaster, complete disaster. We've run the economy aground. And today in one of the other newspapers, this is a newspaper which is owned and I suspect edited by Albert Dumfuo, who is from the Atinka media, you know. No, there's another one. This is a daily analyst. There's another one, business analyst.
Talks about the depreciation of the cedi.
Talks about the depreciation of the cedi. The levels of the depreciation of the cedi, clearly unprecedented, and so on. You understand? So this is where we are, and I'm worried. This is where we are. And we keep borrowing, and we're going to borrow a lot more. Forget the issue of electoral promises. I don't want to go there. You understand? I don't want to go, because if you go there, I mean, what does it mean? Yeah, they promised not to borrow, they promised not to raise taxes and so on. That's it. We are in the hole. How do we get out of the hole? That's my main focus. You understand? So I don't want to do that kind of politics where you go back and say, well, 4 years ago, Vice President Bawumia said this. What is he doing today and so on? He said that. Today, the whole country, we are NPP, NDC, CPP or whatever, we are all in the hole together. We will sink, we'll be buried in that deep hole if you don't find something out of that hole. So the focus ought to be on how to get out of this huge, widening and deepening hole that we find ourselves in. You understand? And I believe that I believe that the way out is to try and attempt to build some kind of national consensus. I've done my part. You understand? If I tell you some of the things that I've done within the last few months, quite apart from advocating the national consensus on platforms like this, my friends, you know, and I have many friends in government and in opposition, you know, I've urged them in private conversations on, kick the arrogance, you know, to kick out the Kalambani attitude, you know, and find ways of sitting down to talk. I've told them. And one of the ministers that I saw 2 weeks ago, you know, and I told him, I said, my friend, what are you doing? What are you doing? You want to collapse this country on us? Get out of this attitude. Understand? Reach out to the other side and begin to talk. This country is collapsing on our heads. Last week, I did a very simple exercise. And my brother, look, it hit me in the face. The extent of degradation hit me in the face. All you have to do is to take prices as of 2016 and compare them to prices today. You will collapse. If you take, for example, a bag of maize, it has more than quadrupled in this short period. Any item you take. Now, that must be the clearest indication. We are seeing these astronomical rises in prices and so on. We are being told that we are doing very well with managing inflation. What is inflation? Inflation simply is the rate at which prices are rising or falling. That is the only definition of inflation. Whether you're a PhD holder, an O-level student and so on, this can only be your definition of inflation. Now, if that is the definition of inflation, how can prices be quadrupling and we are talking about inflation at 12.7%? How is that possible? Does it make sense? Doesn't make economic sense, you know. But maybe we have to be careful, because I recall that in 1986, when I spoke like this, I ended up in prison in 1986. You understand? I mean, 1986, I raised issues about the figures and how the figures don't match the reality. Because we are being told the same stories in 1986. Same stories, same cock and bull stories. Those are the same stories we are being told. We are being told that the economic recovery program was doing very well, the structural adjustment program had brought benefits to us and so on. When indeed the economy was collapsing on our heads. You know, and look, I am very, very deeply worried, very extremely